By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what you need to do to get rid of late payments on your credit profile. Now, the reason why this is extremely important is because late payments on your credit profile can have an extremely outsized impact on the type of credit that you can qualify for, and also by the type that you can qualify for and the products that you can qualify for, the kind of rates that you're going to get when you're buying a house, buying a car, getting a credit card, or applying for any sort of financing. Now, a lot of people play with late payments, and honestly, I did as well. And they get late payments here and there and everywhere, and they don't really care about it. And the truth is, people don't realize how harmful it can be having late payments on your profile until you actually go to apply for credit and you're getting turned down and you don't know why. So what I did is I actually looked up an example of an average home in the UK. I think in this example, you're borrowing about £350,000. Yeah, £350,000. And the difference between a 4.5% rate, which is a pretty good rate right now, and say a 6% rate, which is what maybe a not so great lender would offer you. The difference between those two is £311 per month. Now that's a total price of $3,732 per year, and is effectively equivalent to you being able to borrow an extra £55,000 because of that interest rate discrepancy. So even if you get accepted for credit, you're going to be at a back foot because you're going to be paying a lot more than what you should be. And that's why it's important to sort out your late payments. Now, this actually happened to me and my wife years ago because when I was much younger, I didn't care as much about my credit profile or even my personal finance. And I was late with payments, and I didn't budget well. I didn't manage my cash flow well. And I had a ton of late payments. And by the time I was getting ready to buy a house, we basically kind of got that under control, but they were still having an impact. I kept getting rejected. Namely, it was 4 payments that was causing me to get late payments, that was causing me to get rejected by by mortgage and lenders. And they were 2 late car payments and 2 late car insurance payments. Now, there was a ton of late payments before, but those were the only ones within a 3-year period, which are the only ones that they typically care about. They make the assumption that if you can kind of keep to a good financial habits within 3 years, then it's pretty safe for them to lend to you. Now, that's what happened to me. What actually happened was my mortgage broker actually spoke with the underwriting teams in the banks and building societies. That's why it's really important to have a mortgage broker, by the way. I'll go into that in another video. And they basically said, if you can get rid of those late payments, if they really shouldn't be there, we'll accept this person, no problem at all. He'll pass that criteria. And so that's when I went about getting rid of all of those late payments, and it took months. It was a lot of trial and error. However, I actually came with a formula on how to actually go about doing it that I've gone on to teach loads of people. I've probably had about 50 or 60, maybe even or so calls with people who want to get rid of late payments. I write their letters for them, and it works. And I'm going to be sharing it here with you guys completely free. The biggest thing that you want to consider is that the banks or the lenders are not going to do you a favor. People typically have letters that they write, or they make phone calls and ask nicely. Doesn't typically work. What typically works is pressurizing the bank or the lender to adhere to FCA regulations, because they don't want to be foul of those regulations. Now, I found that 3 or 4 regulations are typically the most important ones, and they all basically say the same thing, and I'll list them in the description box. And it's basically, banks need to be able to accurately report correct information to credit reference agencies and credit bureaus. As it pertains to your credit, and your credit score, that's their only responsibility. So if you have a late payment, they need to report that it's late. If you have a default, they need to report that there's a default. And if you have an accurate on-time payment, they need to report that too. Now, the only time that that's subverted is when it's not your fault as a borrower, because they also have a requirement to treat us as consumers fairly. And that's what actually was what was key to helping me get rid of my late payments. So what I didn't mention is that about a year or two ago, before those late payments happened, I'd actually called the bank and asked them to move our payment dates from, let's say it was the middle of the month to the beginning of the month, because we wanted to make sure that those payments actually went through, right? And that's something that we typically do when you get a new job and you're trying to kind of rebalance your payment date and your budget, etc. And I came to find out that they didn't actually do that. And I know that I made those phone calls. And what I did is I requested all phone calls with them, and I told them why. Because of these late payments, I think I'm not incorrect. I think that you're incorrect. And either rectify these late payments or provide me with these phone calls so I can actually begin a case. And sending 2 or 3 different letters to them finally got their attention from their compliance officers and their legal departments. And in those letters, I was consistently ratcheting up what my next step was. Eventually what did it is that I basically said, I'm going to make a formal complaint to the FCA, and I'm also going to take you to small claims court because I'm paying additional interest that I shouldn't be because you've incorrectly reported our credit relationship. As I said before, the lender's commitments to you are to report accurate information to the credit reference agency, to treat you fairly. They have to report accurate information. They have to investigate if you make a formal complaint and respond to you within a specified period of time. Generally, it's about 28 days. And if the case goes to default, they need to give you an opportunity to rectify the situation before a default is issued. Those are their commitments to you as a consumer. So what did I write in the letter? You can essentially see what I did. I've got the template down below in the description box. However, I'll try to explain it. I tried to change the payment date, is what I said to them. It wasn't actioned on your side. This led for insufficient funds to not be in my account when those payments came out, and the payment was late. But it wasn't my fault. I didn't dispute that the payment was late. I just disputed that the organization did not treat me fairly because I had asked for amendments to be made that they didn't do, which would have made it so that that payment wasn't late. This was incompetence on their side, more so than a problem on my side. Now, what's important for you when you're disputing with a credit reference agency or a lender is to find out your why. Was you late because the lender changed payment dates and didn't inform you? That happens all the time. Was you late because, the lender tried to take funds out of an account when you asked them to take it from another account instead 6 months ago? Or was you late because the lender changed the amount that they should be charging you without giving you proper notice? There's so many different reasons as to why they haven't treated you fairly, and what you can use as an excuse or as a reason for them to reverse that late payment and treat you fairly. You just need to have a little bit of a think. It's also really important to request every and all correspondence with them for 2 reasons. One, you want to be able to make a confident case to them, specifically if it gets to a small claims court, but also as well, there's a significant amount of resources that need to be invested on their side to adhere to this request. So they're going to have to listen and review any and all correspondence with you to ensure that they're telling you the correct information. And hopefully in that process, they figure out that, actually, we were actually in the wrong. And also, to be frank, they might just view that it's much easier and cost efficient for them to just remove the late payments, send you the correspondence without having to review it, because the chances of you coming back, if chances of even you reviewing it, if the late payment is removed, are very low. Now, who did I write the letter to? So when I began doing this, I was making phone calls to their customer support services, and I probably spent hours on the phone trying to explain to them what actually happened. And what I quickly realized is that these people in customer services had no power at all to help me remove late payments from my profile. And then it kind of suddenly clicked, because I was also on the other end of it myself. I used to work in financial services. I used to work for a financial services provider. And when people made formal complaints, it was a completely different complaint resolution process, because it had to go to our legal team, it had to go to our compliance officers, and it didn't just stay with the customer service team. And they dealt with it in a much different manner, and they had a lot more power to actually remove these payments from us than what the client success people or client services team could do. So I wrote a letter to the compliance officer and to the legal team requesting correspondence back within 28 days, which is typical. And that's how I was able to remove late payments from my profile. Just knowing how to structure the letter correctly, knowing what laws and policies to cite, as is in the description below, and also getting it addressed to the right person, and having basically understanding what their responsibilities were to me, and reinforcing that to them to get an adequate response from them. All right, look, I hope you found this video extremely helpful. If you follow everything I said in this video, it might take you a little bit of time to kind of construct your letter. If you want some help constructing a letter, I've actually got a template that you can purchase. It's also in the description. But if you do that and you think about your why and you structure the letter correctly, you should be able to remove most, if not all, of the late payments from your profile. All right, have a good day. Subscribe, check this video out, share it, and I'll see you on the next one.